Lesson 11, the connotation of the fire, Part 1. Most people suppose that the Almighty God punishes the disbelievers by putting them in his fire according to their disobedience and shunning him, but the fact doesn't agree with this assumption, and it is far away from the Almighty God to treat them like that, since he is the Creator, the grand, the all-merciful, and the gracious, who has created and portrayed man, and utilized everything in the universe to serve him, and the creature is not a compeer with its Creator, the all-merciful and the generous. He is the most sublime and most superior, and his mercy is greater and higher. So God absolutely doesn't consider the creature as a compeer, but he, the Almighty, treats him with all his noble, sublime, good names. But the Almighty God created man, putting in his spirit the affection of perfection, giving him the ability to be superior than other creatures. Then when the disbeliever dies and the day of judgment comes, he will see how he plunged his spirit in malice, error, and villainous things by shunning his Creator and not performing the good deeds that he was created for. He will see that if he had got the true belief in God and done those good deeds, they would have drawn him to attain the nearness to the Almighty God and to witness his unlimited, marvelous beauty. I say, if the human sees his state, which is full of malice, error, and lowliness, and beside that he had witnesses his forfeiture, which resulted from his neglecting God, and how he negatively requited the godly goodness, bounties, benevolence, and mercifulness, how he faced all that with meanness and unbelieving and shunning the God the Almighty. In that moment, his spirit will be full of regret, shame, misery, and sadness, and the fire of regret and shocking shame will burn his heart. Then he will not find a dwelling for himself except the fire, and that indicated in the word dweller in the verse. For those who disbelieve and belie our revelation, such are the dweller of the fire, they shall abide therein. The Holy Quran, Fortress 2, Al-Baqarah, the Cow, verse 39. Indeed, he throws himself in the fire and dwells in its painful torment to forget that is spiritual torment and pains. The Almighty God describes the states of those disobedient and disbelievers in his saying, they indeed are losers who deny their meeting with Allah until all of a sudden the hour is on them, and they say, alas for us that we gave no thought to it, while they will bear their burdens on their backs. And evil indeed are the burdens that they will bear. The Holy Quran, Fortress 6, Al-Anam, Livestock, verse 31. This loser says, alas, which indicates his shocking regret and his great forfeiture of losing the paradises, facing and approaching the Almighty Allah according to his previous in the worldly life, own determination and choice, all that makes him accept to have the treatment of the fire in order to mollify his horrible spiritual pains and shame. The Almighty God created the human and sent him to this worldly life, assigning him a great mission according to his own voluntary choice, to be unlike any other creature. As we have mentioned previously, the Almighty God offered the trust for the heavens, the earth, and the mountains, but they refused to bear it. Unlike man, who held it voluntarily with his complete satisfaction, actually that offer has a great danger and lasts misery in it when man misuses it. On the other hand, it has a great aspiration and a great lasting happiness. So the human would be either the best of all creatures or the most evil of all creatures, that is to say, he will have the paradise with all its lasting blessing, pleasure, or the fire with its great torment, in order to have the treatment of his ill spirit and the relief of his true most painful spiritual fire. On the other hand, most creatures refused to bear the trust, unlike the humankind and the jinns, and were satisfied with the little pleasure instead of the unlimited ones, and pleased with this limited pleasure in exchange for their services to the chargeable ones who bore the trust of the human, while the human saw the offers and what it contained of all that boons and all its aspirations and felt afraid to lose it. So he bore the trust and agreed voluntarily to worship the Almighty God and to go in this life according to God's will and orders. Is it true he was unjust and ignorant? In fact, he is ignorant and unjust to himself if he doesn't keep the trust, but he is not if he does, keeping a link with the Almighty God through the Prophet, doing voluntarily good deeds in this worldly life, submitting to Allah's orders, and leaving the forbidden actions and things upon his own determination. We conclude, God the Almighty gave us the freedom of choice, which makes the creature voluntarily and willingly do the deed without obligation, and in fact any creature cannot approach one step through his deed towards his Creator and does not find it worthy unless such a creature has freedom or choice. Originally, the will of the creatures is the possession of their Creator and subject to his power. Therefore, they have no volition or choice. As God wanted to give the spirits the most precious gift, he showed the means by which one can reach this gift. He offered to make the will, which is his own, as a trust to the spirits, and made them free to follow the road leading to the achievement of the deeds resulting from their yearning. The giving of this will and freedom of choice is meant by the word trust. In the world of Al-Azal, the prematerial world, God offered the trust to all the spirits without discrimination, and showed them that the shouldering of the trust, that is to say, the freedom of choice towards the deeds, is a very dangerous thing, If by this means the creature can ascend with his work to the highest rank, his deed might also deteriorating to the lowest rank. So, out of God's mercifulness on his creatures, he clarified to them that if they accepted to hold the trust and come to existence, he will send them a book to be a light and guidance in their acts. If they get illuminated by his light when they start the act coming out of yearning, he seek his guidance and ask him inspiration to the right in their movement. Their way will be straight, their move safe, and their act complying with the path of right shown to them in his book. Thus they are protected from committing evil and from falling in the wrong. Their deeds will be the cause of their rise and sublimation. Then when they come to God after death, their high human acts will be the basis they rely on in their coming near to God, where they, when being near to him, rising successfully and persistently in the paradises of eternal delight. I'm not even like that. If they carry the trust and come to existence without being guided by his light or seeking his guidance when they start their deeds, they will undoubtedly miss the path of right which leads them to happiness. Therefore, all their work will be harm and damage to the creatures. When they go out of this world, they will face their Creator ashamed of their wrong acts, despised because of their mean, shameless, shameful deeds, humiliated by their ungratefulness and baseness which forced them to throw themselves in fire. They hope to forget their great pain and spiritual torture by the pain of fire and torture of burning, for example, escape from hell to fire. In a holy saying, the prophet says, man will be restricted by the sweat of shame on doomsday, that he says, my provider, relieve me even to fire. In another saying, shame will adhere to man on doomsday until he says, oh, my provider, your sending me to fire is easier than what I am suffering, although he knows the great torture in it. As for the rest of the creations who didn't have the freedom of choice, as they refused to shoulder the trust, they act according to their yearning and perform their function in this worldly life. But if they did actions outside their functions, duties, limits, they would be justly punished in this life, unless they wouldn't be punished in the hereafter, and they will be in their quiet pleasure in the hereafter. For example, it is forbidden to kill the snake in its dwelling in the mountains, deserts, or to kill it by pulling it up from underground, because it has several functions in this life serving the human. For example, it kills mice and farms land, which destroys the plants, and it digs to build their underground dwellings, so it helps to pass the air and the water to the plant roots, and it has many several beneficial functions. You have no right to kill it in its ground and holes. And do not kill anyone which Allah has forbidden except for a just cause. The Holy Quran, Fortress 17, Al-Isra, Night Journey, verse 33. If someone killed it in its dwelling or wild land, he would have a great punishment from the Almighty God, either in this worldly life through having disease and or distresses, or in the hereafter, where it will face its killer before the Almighty God to ask him in palming, why did he kill it? Is that suitable for you to kill a creature which was created to serve you? Isn't the goodness equitable goodness, wherein he will feel shame and disgrace in front of all the creations? As he promised to communicate with the Almighty God when he comes to this worldly life, thus every creature will be associated to him, and that is the meaning of the human. But if the snake gets outside its function through entering a human house or facing him in a way, the way aiming at hurting him, in this case he must kill it, and if he kills it, he will have a great reward from the Almighty. The Almighty God likes the braveness of his obedient believer, even in killing a snake when it gets outside its function duty in this universe. The above-mentioned rules go along with the lions, wolves, and the hyenas. It is forbidden to follow them in the isolated forest to kill them, because they have certain cretin functions in the nature serving the honorable and the changeable one, the human. As for the lions and the hyenas who clean the land from the stinky carcasses, which are full of germs, microbes, and decays, if they intervene the human way, then he has the right to kill them, so he will be thankful and has the reward in exchange for his deed. As it has been mentioned, the aggressive animal has its punishment, therefore it will not have the punishment or the fire in the hereafter, because it didn't shoulder the trust. The noble prophet said, whoever killed a bird in vainness, it will complain to the Almighty God in the doomsday, saying, O God, that person killed me in vainness, not for a beneficial thing. In another saying, a bird complained around the throne with a sound like a thunder, saying, O my God, ask that man why he killed me in vainness, not to be eaten. The controller of the freedom of choice is thought. If human didn't have it, he would not have the freedom of choice. As for the rest of the creatures that haven't the freedom of choice in thought, when any animal acts mistakenly outside its function, it will have the punishment in this worldly life, and it will have just the pleasure and happy life in the hereafter. The voluntary work couldn't be similar to the compulsory one, thus it generates a self-confidence in the spirit of the doer, especially if he seeks through his work to satisfy the Almighty God only without any thinking or rewarding from him from any person. If man offers the unconditional help to his brothers in humanity without seeking to be rewarded, then the help will be greater and superior in his spirit, as the freedom is priceless, very valuable. But when man gives it up to the one who bestowed it upon us, after he knows his sympathy and mercy to him, submitting to his commands and abandoning the forbidden things, to be a true worshipper of Him, the Almighty. Accordingly, his spirit becomes confident of God's satisfaction with them. Then his heart will be overwhelmed with the divine pleasure and benevolence, which compensate him in limited multiples of the things that he sacrificed in the way of God worshiping, because the Almighty God appreciates and thanks man for his deeds of going along with his command and legislation and giving up his freedom of choice to choose only what Allah wants to grant him of the good. Then verily Allah is the appreciative, the all-knower. The Holy Quran, Fortress 2, Al-Baqarah, the Cow, verse 158. When man does what Allah wants of charity and good humane deeds, treating people humanely, then he gets in his spirit a great confidence of God's satisfaction with him. For example, when he abandons whatever he likes or desires of prohibited things, as gazing at foreign women, any woman other than his mother, grandmother, sister, daughter, aunt, the very relatives of women, or collecting the money without giving its almsgiving, zakat, and bragging or splurging with it among people, and when he gives up the worldly life pleasures or amusement, seeking God's satisfaction, absolutely he will attain the paradise. Actually, the trust is that we must be faithful with our promise with the Almighty God before our coming to this worldly life. So it is not a close secret that we can't remember, but it is a promise to keep our spirits linking and communicating with the Almighty God if we exodus to this worldly life, and to be illuminated and lighted by His light during our life. But we would not be able to remember that promise if we got busy with materialistic life or with our lowly yearnings. The wise is the one who remembers that promise, such as the prophets and the envoys who keep their promise. Therefore, they become the guide to all humankind. Please stop. They are those whom Allah has guided, so follow their guidance. The Holy Quran, Fortress 6, Al-An'am, Livestock, verse 158. Man can achieve his promise without them because he cut the link with the Almighty God, but they don't. They keep their inside eyed, facing His beauty and grandness with a great affection. Thus, the truthful people will support the prophets wherever they are from, or whoever nation they belong to. The Almighty God says, so those who believe in Him honor Him, help Him, and follow the light which has been sent down to Him. It is they who will be successful. The Holy Quran, Fortress 7, Al-Araf, the Heights, verse 157. For those who plunge themselves in unlimited borders and don't look at the truth except through their own benefits or through their party enthusiastic views, they are fake guides, because the truth cannot be limited by a place or time, and man must support the divine religion, Islam, even against himself.